Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Paul Andriola of Small Cap Discoveries. I've got with me Harold Leishman from the Small Cap Specialist Group. Harold, along with Brent Todd, are colleagues of ours and guys that we've known for a number of years. And what we really like about these guys, apart from just being great guys, is the fact that they're as crazy about small caps as we are. And so we thought we'd bring Harold on today to help have him explain a little bit about what he does. He's going to be partnering with us for our conference September 29th and 30th at the Park Hotel in Vancouver. So what we've done is we've taken the list of companies that are presenting at the conference and thrown a whole bunch of data around these companies as Harold loves to do and as we love to do. And we thought we'd just spend some time going through some of the data out there, and Harold's going to help explain why he thinks it's important for investors to look at some of this data and see what we can come up with. So, Harold, thanks for joining us today, and maybe tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little about the Small Cap Specialist Group and what you guys are trying to do here.
Perfect. Well, first of all, Paul, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you as always. Um, Myself, I mean, I've been in the business for over 30 years, and really, actually, it was when I met you, I don't know, 15 years ago that I got really sort of dialed in on companies with cash flow and earnings and growth and all of that sort of thing. And my struggle was, how do you keep all that information in your head? Companies reporting at different times or making different announcements about acquisitions or dispositions or what have you, and how do you sort of manage all of that information in a way where you can make timely decisions? And so I spent a lot of time and money trying to find a process for keeping that information current and valid. And then my other partner, Brent, well, he's been in it even longer than I have, and has been dialed in on companies with a margin of safety, as you would call it, and some sort of upside potential. And so we would always sort of find ourselves in the same names. Similarly with you and Trevor, we keep crossing paths, and so it's all about having a bigger community and more people focused on names and screening and talking to management teams and all that sort of thing. So that's who we are. The other part of our team is on the wealth side, and the small cap stuff gives people a bit of torque for their portfolios. And also, I would argue a lot of clients who are in this space are, small business owners, and they just love
Mhm.
learning about businesses because it's endlessly fascinating, but they maybe don't have the time to, grind through all that data.
Mhm. Yeah, no, and this is something we brought up a number of times when we've spoken. I mean, there's a lot of work in going into really, parsing through the data, understanding what is driving some of the success of these businesses. I agree. Part of why we exist is the same thing. We're trying to compile, of the 3,500 plus companies that we know
Yeah.
on the Canadian exchanges, we're trying we're trying to find the handful that we should take serious looks at. I mean, your day job, you're a broker, you're an investment advisor. We've recommended, referred a lot of clients to you guys. By the way, lots of them are very happy. As a matter of
That's
fact,
good. I'm glad to hear
that's why
that.
we keep sending you more
Yeah.
clients. But really, you're here to help those that don't have the time to kind of do the crazy stuff that we do, where we, deep dive into a bunch of businesses and try to come up with good investment ideas. Let's jump into it. Like, I know you've got a bunch of data that you want to show us here. Let's go through this and maybe explain really what you look for when we're talking about these small caps.
Sure. I think before I do that, and so what
Mm,
we did is we, as you well, and last year and this year and maybe the year before, we've provided the data sets for your booklet for
mhm,
your conference. And so we're not going to share all that data, but we have summarized the data, which I can share on my screen here, and some different ways of sorting it. Um, I think it's always really important to remember that the numbers are static and backward, and they're backward looking. And really the value of your conference, or the Small Cap Discoveries Conference, is your chance to sit down with management teams and try to find companies that will, their data going forward obviously is going to be, much improved, because that's where the torque comes from in the share price. And so that's one thing. And then data itself is simply that you do have to dig in past the numbers. You can't just
Mhm.
buy things, especially in small caps. You can't buy things simply on just a quantitative measure. Um, so yeah, so we can jump in. I will see if I can figure out how to share my screen, if that's all right with you.
Absolutely, go for it. And
You
maybe
want?
while we're doing that, explain kind of where you're getting the data from.
Sure,
Canaccord
sure.
has quite an impressive quantitative data platform. Maybe talk to that a bit.
Sure. So there's two parts. So for our wealth management, for our wealth management portfolios, which are all discretionarily managed, we use Canaccord's platform called Quest, which is an institutional grade platform. Institutions pay, I forget whether it's $250,000 or £250,000 a year. It's actually driven out of the UK to access that particular data set. It is incredibly comprehensive in terms of its global scope, its view on cash return on capital or cash return on assets, ownership, quality of financials, et cetera, et cetera. It's always interesting to me when I use that looking for small caps, which
Mhm.
small caps show up, because quite often, well, most of
Mhm.
the time, small caps don't show up on that list. For example, Vital Hub didn't only showed up, I think, in the last 7 or 8 months. And that would have been driven by some sort of institution that has it. So I did a quick look, and 9 of the companies that are at your conference this year are in that Quest platform, which I think infers to me that some institution somewhere has requested that they upload that data, because they will go through and draw the data, but they actually go through and manually make sure that it is as accurate as possible.
Mhm. Well,
So that,
before you jump in that's something important because, Vital Hub presented, I think, 4 or 5 years ago at our conference, and I'm sure no institutions were were paying a lot of attention at that point. To
yeah,
know that there's 9 of the 44 companies that are presenting now, only 9 that are on that institutional platform. That means there's another 30, almost 35 companies right now that are yet to be on that institutional platform, and hopefully at some
exactly.
point. So that's where the real opportunity exists, I think, in our.
Right. And what you've always sort of talked about with the whole discovery process is trying to get involved and
Mhm.
find these things before it becomes, um, you know, widely known
Mhm.
and followed.
Yeah,
So, um, so that is always a bit of an interesting tidbit. Um, all right. Shall we try to share the screen? So like I said, we just took the
Mhm.
company's data.
Mhm.
There we go. See if that works. Can you see that all right?
It's working. You betcha.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Oh, good. So basically, these are just the companies at your conference. And then I always like to think, if you're going to go meet 40 companies, it's an exhausting experience.
Mhm.
And so trying to narrow down on, hey, which one should I really focus on? And there's different ways of looking at it. And so we've summarized the data here. So right now it's sorted by, well, you can see all the companies are there, sorted by, trailing 12-month revenue. We could sort it by, um, fastest growing revenue on a percentage basis. Um, so, Glow Life Tech is up there. Obviously, it's coming from a very small base. And you and I have talked
Mhm.
in the past about this, right? I mean, going from 1 million in sales to 2 million in sales is hard enough, but going from 20 million to 40 million is a much more
Mhm.
significant endeavor.
Mhm.
And again, it's part of taking everything with a grain of salt. So
Hmm.
that's trailing 12-month revenue. I'm always interested in, as I think you are, quarterly revenue
Hmm.
jumps. It's kind of the leading edge or bleeding edge of, hey, is this a
Hmm.
trend that could turn around? And then of course we've got the valuation metrics. Um, EV/EBITDA is we'll do that smallest to largest. These are all negative EBITDA currently, so we did the next 10,
Hmm.
I guess, as something to look at as cheap.
Hmm.
Or so Z test I know is one that you've talked about quite a bit.
Hmm.
And we've got it at sort of 2.5 times EV to EBITDA. And then for fun, we kind of put together a little for discussion purposes, a little algorithm, the as close as we can to the small cap discovery methodology. I know you like to use net income. We didn't include that one, so we've just said, hey, if you're EBITDA positive, we'll call that close. So you get a point. You get a point for that on our
Hmm.
little algorithm. And then if trailing 12-month revenue is over 20%, which is also one of the metrics that you talk about a lot, um, you get a point for that. And then we included an extra one and just said, hey, in the companies going to the conference, if your EV to EBITDA is in the bottom 30%, you'd also get a point. And so
Hmm.
these are just sort of some of the ways that we try to have fun with numbers and try to
Hmm.
like mash it around and think like, hey, where should we put our focus?
Hmm.
And so interesting, two companies, get a score of 3. The NTG Clarity and the Canara Biotech are sort of the two ones that check all of those boxes. This is not to say that people should go out and buy those, of course. It's just,
Hmm.
you know, maybe there's something interesting there. And then there's a whole bunch of companies that get a 2 and then a whole bunch that get a 1. And there's only a few that
Hmm.
don't get any sort of mark.
Yeah.
And again, as we said, the purpose of the conference really is to try to find companies that maybe are missing one of those pieces.
Hmm.
Um, but what is the time frame where maybe they can start checking more boxes and maybe
Hmm.
get more institutional interest or investor interest,
Hmm.
you know.
Yeah,
Um,
well, yeah, exactly. And as we know in the microcap space, it's rare for a company to check all the boxes. That's why they're microcaps, right? They're
that's
still they're
right.
still learning to run rather than or crawl in some cases before they can run. But I think what this is splendid in allowing, I don't say elegant because it's impossible over a 2-day conference to do due diligence on 44, 45 companies.
Right. Yeah.
It's going to be helpful to narrow it down to the ones that somebody is going to have more interest in. And what I'm always fascinated by is so many different investors look for different things, right? Either fast growing revenue, even at the mercy of earnings. Some want to see profitable companies that are growing quickly. I mean, there's a whole host of different things. So this is a great way to be able to sort of pinpoint the handful of companies that you can meet and talk to management for. So I think it's fantastic. I think great data and again, reminder everybody, the data that you're going to see in the booklet for our conference is all from Harold's platform here. Thankfully he's been kind enough to help us out in getting all that data prepared. So this is the sort of stuff that Harold can do for you. This is the sort of stuff that can help simplify that whole due diligence process for those that are looking for the next 10, 20 bagger that once in a while we just happen to stumble on and and try
Yeah.
to try to own as much as we can, right?
Yeah. It's funny, actually, we were talking with Trevor and finding the companies is one thing. Not talking yourself out of them is another thing. You're talking about things not checking all the boxes, and then finally also, like position management is
Yeah.
not necessarily a simple thing. We see lots of investors like, well, no, just all the eggs in the one basket, and we're going to ride it to the end, and they have huge swings up and down, and we like a more disciplined approach. But it's investing is an emotional game, even if
Hmm.
you're, intellectually, you just got all the data you're working on.
Hmm.
It's still a challenge for investors, and it's good to have. I know for myself, having Brent to talk to, or my other partner Julian, to go and have a proper argument about what should the
Hmm.
position weighting be and what are our expectations in terms of
Hmm.
uh, timing and price and everything
Hmm.
else. Um,
Let's talk about something slightly different. Like one thing, you guys call yourself the small cap specialist group. I mean, you guys really are um, specialists in this space. Like when we talk to a lot of companies across the country, and when they come to Vancouver, they're meeting with you guys. Like everybody understands that there takes some high degree of specialty in the microcap space where it's not everybody has that specialty. The understanding the nuances of, well, the data that you're looking at here, it does take, this is me saying this, I'm not getting paid by Harold to say this, but it takes a different level of skill set to really understand the nuances of this type of the market. And what I can categorically say is you and Brent are two of the best in the business when it comes to understanding microcaps. And many of the other players across the space understand that, and that's why when they come to Vancouver, they seek you guys out. And clients should understand that. So not all investment advisors are created equal, especially when it comes to the small cap and micro cap space, and hence why we refer a lot of our clients and members when they need this type of work, we send them your way. Maybe talk about your sort of experience or what you do see even right now. Generally, we won't talk about specific companies, but where are we in the marketplace? What do you think is happening? What
Yeah, well, I will touch on that. I will say you're right. A lot of companies, when they come to Vancouver, either they're calling or they come to Vancouver, or we do property or site visits. And between myself and Julian and Brent, we try to have as many conversations as we can, because the data is one thing.
Mhm.
Understanding how the data may change is also sort of the critical piece. Um, um, and now I've lost my train of thought for your original question, which is just fantastic.
That's all right. That's all right. It happens. You know what? I go back to this whole idea of 3,500 companies, give or take, in the market. Trying to shrink it down to an investable, sort of number of companies, it's a lot of work. And to just,
It,
like you said, the quantitative side is one thing, but the qualitative side is the other piece that you don't really get if you haven't spent time in the business and understanding sort of the nuances of the stuff. Maybe talked about a little bit more about that. Companies come and say hi and they visit you because they want to get your attention. But
yeah,
what else do you look for?
yeah. I mean, they definitely want to get our attention, or at some point they might need financing,
Mm,
and depending on the size of the account, they might be willing to go, a little more down the risk spectrum, versus a smaller account where we would try to have it in a more conservative speculation, like a small a
mm,
small company. And so we're just looking for the same things as you. We want some margin of safety, that we can put our finger on, and some sort of torque for upside that is not too distant in the future. You know,
mm,
12 to 24 months. I mean, the sooner the better,
mm,
of course, but everything takes longer than you'd expect and
mm,
anticipated. Um, we're looking for quality management teams. Again, the same thing that you've harped on. You're not looking for the promotional management team. You want a management team that will, you know, quietly tell you what they think they can achieve, and probably under promise and over deliver.
mm,
And so we take notes on what people say, and then we keep track of, how closely do they hit the mark or exceed it.
mm,
And these are all some of the soft things that you build up over time.
Mhm.
And I know it's come up, either in your conference or in conversations with you, having that history with the management team
Mhm.
to understand the business, some of the nuances of it, the manager's honesty and
Mhm.
ability.
Mhm.
Those take time to fully appreciate, I think, and that information takes time and effort,
Mhm.
and it's hard won, really.
Mhm. Yeah.
I know we've all invested in things where the management tells you something and doesn't even come close, or maybe sometimes, lied directly to your face.
Yeah.
And you'll never forget that, right?
Yeah.
That you
Yeah.
kind of know how those people are, and so that's all part of it, right?
Yeah, and I'd also say one of the things that I don't think is truly appreciated is that a lot of times we will start talking to management teams years before we ever invest, right? So we can
Hmm.
actually build up a track record even though we have no money at stake. But you get to understand a management team, you get to see them, their trials and tribulations, and then over time, you're a little bit closer to the business to see the inflection point.
Hmm.
There's cases where I've watched the company for 10 years and then finally say, aha, it's finally started, right? Now I can invest in
It's checked
it.
enough boxes. Yeah.
Yeah, and that doesn't show up on a quantitative spreadsheet, right?
Right.
It's that sort of stuff, I think. And again, you've been at this almost as long as I have, so you've got you've got the time and effort
The
already
scars. The
invested, and the
scars.
scars. I was going to say scars, but yeah,
That's right.
mind
Actually,
you,
now
you've got more hair than I do, so you've obviously done something right. Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah,
And then before you're asking sort of where are we in the cycle? I mean,
yeah.
obviously these days it is, we're in a commodity driven market, a precious
Mm,
metals market, and we see it in the number of financings going through, and you can I won't talk about exactly where we are in our sort of liquidity volatility thing, because I know Julian's going to talk about that at one of your lunch
yeah,
uh,
yeah.
your lunch slot. So I don't want to steal his thunder.
Hmm.
I mean, as we're all aware, we're well off the bottom, and I think we're nowhere near a top. I mean,
Hmm.
it is starting to go here pretty well, but I think there's lots of opportunity. I loved your comment in your weekly missive. I think it was your weekly missive that the market's kind of like teenagerhood, but it was
Unpredictable,
unpredictable and
volatile.
volatile. Yeah.
Having
Uh,
twin
like
teenage
that
boys.
was
Yeah.
that was that was an excellent note. So
Mm,
yeah, so I think there's lots of opportunity. Again, that position management also kind of depends on where you are in that
yeah.
cycle. Um, Typically, I think what happens with investors is, the bottom of the cycle, everyone's beaten up, and you might begrudgingly put a little bit of money in something and complain and whine. And by the top of the cycle, everyone's made a mountain, and you're like, putting in 10 times as much to every deal, and really it should be inverted, right?
Yeah.
At the bottom, you should be, rolling in with
Yeah.
with considerable cash, and at the top, taking smaller positions and being a little faster and happier with smaller wins.
Yeah.
Um, because when they turn the lights out, it's not with a dimmer.
That's right. Yeah. Very, very true.
Yeah.
So listen, listen, for those that are listening, if you think you need help in the micro cap, small cap side, I highly recommend contacting Harold and Brent. Again, years of experience doing this sort of stuff and understanding the nuances of the space. Harold, if somebody does want more information about your services, how best can they contact you?
Well, my phone number is 604-643-7623, or you can email us at llc@cgf.com. That's
Mhm.
our team email. So everyone, our whole team sort of on that. So
Perfect. And if you do happen to come to the conference September 29th, 30th at Park Hotel, please reach out to Harold. And if you got any questions, I'm sure he'll be happy to help you with them. So yeah, once again, we've been speaking with Harold Leishman of the Small Cap Specialist Group of Canaccord, one of my good friends, and look forward to seeing you at the end of the month here.
absolutely. Paul, thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
You got it. Anytime. Bye for now.
Thanks. Bye.